When I first started talking about Larry and decided I was going to launch my Larry fan essay channel just for fun and a bit of stress relief, I had mainly, well, I launched it on Harry's birthday. So I had decided to, talk about the power of cute because it was about Harry Styles and it was about kind of like I always felt that his natural charisma. Now, this is really when I had discovered Larry, and it kind of went on for a while where I was talking about Harry. He's so cute, yada, yada, yada. And somebody said, and I think it's somebody that's now following me on this channel, and they said, why don't you ever talk about Louie? So I said, you know what? You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. I don't talk about Louis, and I think I was planning to talk about Louis. I think I was in a bit of a hairy moment, but they were right. I said, I'm going to talk about Louis. And I remember saying, for those of you who want me to talk about Louis, I'm definitely going to talk about Louis and really watch how I talk about Louis. Because as much as I was like in the gushing of Harry, it pales in comparison to Louis. So I know that, and a lot of people have talked about the reemergence of Larry Stylinson as a fandom talking point. Mainly, I do think that similar to me, there were a lot of people who were very, you know, saddened by hearing about Liam Payne passing, even if they weren't a fan, just because he was so young. And because of that, they began watching a lot of old videos, and then the statistics were showing it because suddenly, like, One Direction had like a billion streams, and like their songs were topping the charts again. So there was sort of a resurgence in both nostalgia and just interest in the band. And I didn't know until really recently that One Direction began writing their own stuff. I knew that when they went solo, they were kind of writing their own stuff, but I didn't realize that they already transitioned to being their own songwriters, which was unique for a boy band and being so young. But with the reemergence of Larry Stylinson and the discovery of My Policeman, the the I think that that rode the trend for the the first half, or at least the first quarter of 2025. But I don't think that alone is responsible for the Larry Stylinson sort of growing 10 years after the band went on hiatus. So let's talk about why the Larry Stylinson fandom is suddenly waking back up and woke back up in 2025 after years of it sort of being a bit more quiet, because I was shocked I hadn't heard about it before. Because if you've been anywhere near TikTok or Reddit or Twitter or the classic Larry Stylinson Facebook groups, fan groups, you may have noticed that it's sort of it's revitalized, and people are reshipping Harry Styles and Louis Tomlinson again, like newer videos, not old ones that are being stitched, right? It's like people are making whole new videos, and it's not subtle. So the timing feels suspiciously perfect. And because Louis Tomlinson's very recent news, including the really generous donation to help his former bodyguard, like, this is why I love the man. I just love him. As well as the resurfacing of old One Direction memories, and then Louis dropping songs from the new album. And then, of course, Harry is making the news more for being seen with Zoe Kravitz. So fans have been saying, well, wait a second, why does this feel familiar? Are the parallels back? Is this the return of Larry energy? So kind of thought we would like deconstruct what's kind of being chattered about, any particular catalysts, and why old memories that are resurfacing among sort of new Louis content with music have kind of made the fandom feel like it's 2014 again. So if you missed it in 2014, like I did, because I was a little too old, I got on the Larry train this time. So why are fans reshipping Larry now? in like now we're heading towards the end of 2025. Well, because the perfect storm hit. There's a fresh Louis Tomlinson news story. The nostalgia for One Direction's anniversary cycles apparently are coming by. Then there's TikTok is making certain edits go viral. Then I think it's the algorithm too. Old Harry and Louis clips resurfacing. And I think the Phantom is just being sentimental and emotionally raw because Louis is coming out with a new album. And let's be honest, Harry Styles is in his mysterious closed door era, and Louis is in his confident, soft hearted, generous album ready era. And then who can't help but eat up the contrast, right? So, you know what? And once again, it's giving mirror energy, it's giving parallel lives, it's giving the universe is saying something vibes. Now, these are not claims, these are just my interpretation of what the vibes seem to be. And if I'm wrong, that's fine, because I'm not saying I'm right. I'm curious what other people think the vibes are saying, because the vibes have been the foundation of the Larry Stylinson fandom theory, fandom history. So the first major spark was that Louis Tomlinson had dropped Lemonade, Sleepwalking, and then Palaces. And then there was the donation story got trending, and Louis quietly donated £4,000 to help his former bodyguard get life-saving surgery. So he didn't announce it. But fans, apparently, the ever amazing forensic detective, investigative, pattern recognition, gifted people in the Louis army, they found it through GoFundMe receipts. I mean, my God, talk about, you guys are such forensic fans. I love you. I wish I was as good as you guys were. I think that the people that were fans early on who learned the traits of all this detective work, they were young. They were in their early teens. And I think the younger you are and you learn how to do this, and if you had a natural knack for it to begin with, by the time you hit 20, you're really good. If you haven't been recruited by an agency, you may want to look into that. So, of course, once this receipt was found, the internet kind of went, it hit the internet like a tidal wave. The Louis were like, this is so Louis. He always shows up. He's always been the heart of One Direction. And then naturally, Larry said, this is exactly who Harry was always drawn to. I mean, not just Harry, lots of us. Like I said, Louis Tomlinson is like my ideal man, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. Because in the One Direction era, Louis was the problem solver, the caretaker, the glue, the magnificent, the brilliant, the genius. Louis was the real superstar of One Direction. I love you, Harry, but Louis is it. And the energy is back, and people notice. And right when Louis' kindness was trending, I think the TikTok algorithm began pushing old Harry Styles interview clips, because I think they're like in the metadata, it's like Harry and Louis trend together because that's how it had been for so long. And there's just so much data of them being trended together. So, we're talking Harry looking at Louis instead of the camera. This is old footage. Harry laughing too hard at Louis jokes. Harry finishing Louis sentences. Harry's entire personality softening whenever Louis spoke. The classic Harry's neck vein compilation. Apparently, that surfaced. The backstage interactions, the body language analyses, the accidental touches, the boys sharing clothes era. Although I think Louis and Zayn also shared clothes, but then Zayn also shared clothes with Ziam. So, the only single straight guy with a guitar in One Direction was Niall Horan. And then the famous Vine edits that broke the internet. Vine is no more, but people had downloaded it and had, I think, held on to it. The timing was insane. So as Louis' present-day kindness had made the headlines, fans were simultaneously being bombarded by old clips of the exact dynamic that started the Larry universe. Because algorithms are chaos, but sometimes the chaos lines up a little too poetically. And on Reddit, such as the very famous Larry Stylinson page, a lot of the nostalgia was there too. It's not just that page, but like 1D, Harry Styles, Louis Thompson. The Reddit page is dedicated to them and the band. And people were posting about the Larry Renaissance. I know nothing's happening, but it feels like something's happening. And then, this is sort of, it triggers this cascade of like a burst of memories, because memory lane, it's like a fast drive into memory lane. Like, if anything, memory lane in Larry universe is like the Autobahn in Germany at 200 miles per hour, because Larry Stylinson is filled with moments and looks and lyrics and coincidences and tattoos and harmonies and emotional arcs, and entire years of twinning, mirroring, and parallels. Then you combine that with a fresh dose of Louie core tenderness, and Fandom could not help but be in a full reship, redo. So, and it does get deeper because you would see, and I mean, I think it could also be just the algorithm is showing you what you want to see because it knows what you're looking at. So you see this resurfacing on Twitter X and TikTok of old interviews where Harry and Louie were making each other laugh uncontrollably. We're mirroring their body language. We're sitting unnecessarily close, so Harry would like scoot over to be near Louis. Shared microphones, the stare and blush thing, talked about each other's talent, protected each other from press questions, finished each other's thoughts. And then the infamous Always in My Heart tweet, the matching tattoo era. I keep going on about that. The house rumors, the secret vacation theories, and the intertwined lyrics between their solo careers, because they always seem to kind of vanish from the media and then come back at the same time. And fan sentiment was about, hey, we survived 8 years of hints, we can handle one more wave. So every time Louis shows kindness and warmth or emotional intelligence, the fandom remembers why they fell into Larry the rabbit hole in the first place. And then, there's this thing about Louis' 2025 energy. It's very specific, very soft, and very mature. So between the Las Vegas Grand Prix performance, this new music era sound vibe, the sonic reinvention of Louis, the streaming surge, and just the getting played on radio, like the radio recognition in mainstream stations, and this growing confidence, like fans are seeing probably one of the most expressive, emotionally present Louis that they've seen since early One Direction days. So that, of course, will trigger some feelings for people, because for Larry shippers, the emotional parallel is simple. If Louie's in a good place, then Harry's in a reflective place, and that equals Larry energy coming back full speed center stage. So in the middle of all this, the Louis wave, Harry Styles has been quiet, off the radar, healing, rebuilding, working on new music, and according to industry rumors, living very, very privately, which is a contrast. And then, gets fans all abuzz because in the 2012 to 2013 dynamic, Harry was loud and expressive and Louis was quiet but intense. Now the energy's reversed. Louis is present, glowing, generous, and Harry is absent, mysterious, and introspective, which gets the fandom wondering, what does this feel like emotional? Why does this feel like emotional mirroring again? Why do their eras always seem synchronized? Why does Louis glow when Harry disappears? Why does Harry disappear when Louis is shining? Because he doesn't want his honey to be like overshadowed. I mean, he's just being very like, generous and stuff. Anyway, not facts, just fandom psychology 101. Not really psychology, but fandom thoughts. But in the Larry world, patterns are everything. And so apparently on TikTok, some Larry edits, soundtracked by Palaces, Two Ghosts, Home, Love of My Life, Walls, All This Time, and even the Hunger League, are creations that fans have done with overlaying the Louis soft moments with the donation story and Harry's emotional lyrics, and the result is a reshipping rebrand. They always find each other in the narrative, parallel lives, two different sides of the same story. If softness had a face, it would be theirs. Doesn't take much to get the fandom on a roll because it's like gas on fire. So why does this moment feel reinvigorated? Because fans aren't just reacting to Louis news; they're reacting to the feeling of the fandom. And the last few days have created a perfect emotional storm. A good storm though. Louis showing kindness, Harry being quite introspective, old One Direction memories surfacing, algorithm loops feeding edits, nostalgia cycles activating, and new music era rising. It feels like the start of a new chapter. It feels like the universe is nudging the fandom again. Louis stepping forward always wakes up the Larry energy. It's not about truth or claims. It's about the blending of emotion, mythology, and the collective fandom memory. And I think maybe that's why fans are reshipping Larry right now. Not because of any new event, apart from like Louis's whole career arc, because that's amazing. But it's not a new event with both of them. It's Louis, but because the emotional echo between past and present is too hard not to ignore. And this moment may just feel familiar. It feels nostalgic, symbolic, and in fandom language, It's like the Larry energy is returned to the timeline, even if it's just within the collective psyche. So the reason why I think Harry goes soft while Louis becomes loud, and then Louis becomes reflective when Harry is out and about, it's sort of like yin and yang, where you've got the balancing of yin and yang make a whole.